Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the new playlist that I'm going to be starting. Instead of with Mrs. Bray Reads a Story, where I read a bunch of short stories, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a chapter per video to you from the novel Bonfire by Susan Raby-Dunne. This is a very special book. It is written by, Susan Raby-Dunne, who is a local Alberta woman who lives in the south, southern Alberta, and she's actually a friend of my mom's, which is very cool. And this book is about the author of the poem, John McCrae, through the eyes of his horse, Bonfire. So this is what's called a historical fiction novel. So it is written about true events, but from the eyes of a perspective that is not 100% perfectly true. Okay, so this one actually kind of reminds me of the old book Black Beauty by Anne Sewell, being from the perspective of a horse. So all of the historical events in the book are true, and John McCrae is a real person. He wrote the poem in Flanders Fields, and there's a lot of pictures in the book as well. And the book takes us through from the initial training before World War started, the World War I started, before the Canadians were sent overseas, and then up through to the end of World War I. So it's a very, very good book. It is very well written. And not only was the book written by a local Alberta author, it is also printed in Canada as well. So, which is also very cool. So a very, very Canadian book. As some of you guys may know, I definitely do have a big interest in World War I and World War II history because my great-grandfather was a World War I vet, and my grandfather was a World War II vet. So always a topic very near and dear to my heart. So today we're going to start out by reading the prologue, and then we'll have another video per chapter with one video per chapter for Bonfire. All right, I hope that you all enjoy the story as much as I enjoy the story. Okay, so its full name is Bonfire, the Chestnut Gentleman. Okay, oops, you gotta get all the way to the prologue here. Prologue. I was known throughout Quebec as Bonfire, fox hunter extraordinaire. But that was before my owner, Dr. Todd, gave me to his friend, the Major, in the fall of 1914. I was upset at first. No one likes a change, and everyone knows that we horses are, by definition, creatures of habit. Okay? But it wasn't long before I realized that I would never be in better hands. Dr. Todd was fond of all of his fine fox-hunting horses, but the Major loved me. No, love is not too strong a word. As much as a human can love an animal, that man adored me. I don't know why. Maybe it was the trying circumstances we found ourselves in during the spring of 1915 on the road to Ypres in Flanders. Nothing brings creatures closer than war. Actually, that's not fair. Our friendship began before that, in the giant tent city called Valcotier, Quebec, before we even got onto that ship bound for England. It all started before we ever walked up the plank on the ship called Saxonia, which would take us to the murky plain near a strange collection of upright stones called Stonehenge. My owner, Dr. Todd, wasn't a bad sort. But if you were to ask me if I preferred galloping hell-bent for election across country over hedges, ditches, and brick walls after a poor, terrified fox, or going for a relaxing hack with the gentle Major, I'd have to say the latter. And getting fed a pound or two of blackberries into the bargain? Who could resist? Yeah. That was in France, after the terrible battle the Major and I were in, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It all started with Camp Valcartier. Dr. Todd shipped me from his stable to that place by train, a short but stressful journey. We were cramped into grubby livestock cars like kippers in a can, horses of all qualities and descriptions, even mules. I couldn't imagine where we were going. The other train cars were full of excited and, for the most part, deliriously happy young men. Such chatter, such bravado. I couldn't understand why Dr. Todd would send me away. I'd never received anything but the highest praise from everyone for my prowess as a hunter and jumper, and let's face it, for my good looks as well. Whenever Dr. Todd entertained his guests for any reason, they were brought down to the stables to see me. In fact, if Dr. Todd didn't bring them down to the barn of his own volition, they would invariably ask, "May we see Bonfire?" And he'd bring them down regardless. Children in 2s and 3s would be led around the yard on my back. I didn't mind that, actually. But if the visitors were adults, majorly the Todd's wife would ride me over a course of jumps by the way of showing off. The guests would applaud. Several asked if I was for sale, and the answer was always a resounding, "Never! We could never part with him." So why would he suddenly pack me onto a train with other horses, many of whom were of dubious quality and character? It was a mystery and a source of anxiety to me. Where could I be going? And why? So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the prologue, and stay tuned for our next video of Chapter 1 of Bonfire.